Left 4 Dead 2 is a game that doesn't need any introduction. The sequel to Left 4 Dead 1 that not only popularized the horror shooter genre thanks to its gameplay, map design, and its wonderful cast of characters, but it also inspired many games that added their own twist to the genre. It's a game that deserves all the praise it has received. And I haven't really played it. But I have played Darktide. When Darktide made its initial release, it was rather mixed, with bad optimization and some gameplay elements that felt tedious. But since then, I believe it has made a total turnabout, and with the recent release of the Arbites class and some other content, I want to talk about it. But before we get to the game itself, let's first talk about the universe set in. Now, I'm sure most of you are aware of 40k thanks to the 40k games, videos talking about it, and the setting itself gaining more popularity. But, to make sure everyone is caught up, in the far future of 40k, humanity is greatly expanded to the stars. Under the totalitarian and religiously zealous Imperium of Man, it's a setting where the average human has to toil under brutal conditions, where they are beset by all manners of enemies that can share a gruesome end, or far worse. And that fate may be met by the Imperium itself, for whatever reason. It's a setting filled with strife and misery. Though for Darktide, all you need to know is the planet Toma has undergone a chaos cult uprising for Nurgle, the god of pestilence and rot. And, as a cherry on top, the regiment that would have protected Toma, the Mobian Six, have turned traitor, and is working with the cult. You are a prisoner, a reject. Whether you were rightfully incarcerated or not, doesn't matter, because now you and countless other rejects work for the Inquisition, the secret police of the Imperium, to liberate Toma, no matter how many of you die in the process. Starting visuals, Darktide is gorgeous. Many of the environments are able to capture that impressive scale and gothic architecture 40k is known for, while having the environments form their own distinctions that further adds character to them. From ports laid waste by irradiated deserts, colossal factories that highlight the grand industrial machinery of the Imperium, or more regal areas fit only for the upper hive presence of Atoma. Though areas like the Torrent Perlite and those set to toil in the lower levels of the hive, complete with all manners of grime, dirt, and other horrible businesses. I don't know if that's a word. And it's not just big stuff. The weapons they have access to not only look great, but sound great, with some neat details. The chain weapons emit the smoke and engine noise when wielded, with the actual teeth slowly moving, and when you rev it up, it becomes more prominent and aggressive, complete with the sound it makes whenever it hits something. Pyro and psychic weapons have the spark when activated. And psychic staffs make a whooshing sound when fired. The las guns have this thump with a great variety to them, from a low boom to aggressive rattles.
That's the Ranger, Sergeant!
And the iconic bolt gun is given proper justice. All of these add a level of satisfaction when using against any would-be heretic. Which lets me transition over to the voice acting. Special enemies make a unique announcement before they actually arrive, that not only lets you know who's coming, but also conveys their personality. Bombers talk like a professional soldier, and warn their allies before throwing their grenades.
Heads down!
Choppers and flamers, however, are entirely crazy, and want nothing more than to catch or burn you to a crisp.
Something new for the collection!
Ready to burn it up! Want 'em crispy?
The talk signs of the bomber and flamer are still crazy, but in style of a door-to-door evangelical salesman.
Come forth and embrace the truth!
Fire! Death! Renewal! Fire! Death! Renewal! Fire! Death! Renewal! Fire! Death! Renewal!
This also extends to the regular and elite enemies as well.
Capitu Reclusius, now! In Nurgle's name!
But wait, what about these guys? Now, when you encounter a poxwalker, you might think they're nothing more than just zombies, which is half true. But when you hear what they say, beyond the groans and cries, you realize that they are somewhat aware of what's happened to them.
Help me!
And these lines are also present in the demon host, where it starts with them denying the fact that a demon inhabits their body. It transitions to the host giving prayers as a vain attempt to free themselves, before it breaks its chains, and now the demon's the one who does the talking, laughing, and mauling.
You're not real, you're not real, you're not real. That's the Emperor, for he is the salvation of mankind. Your soul is mine.
However, moving past my newfound fear of losing control over my body despite being fully conscious, our characters also have things to ramble about.
Heretics still haven't got the message, have they?
Yeah, well that's something, ain't it? All these more folks who need a bullet in the back. Officers, commissars, people who don't share the ammo and meds.
But you'd really shoot me in the back for not sharing ammo?
The voice acting for the rejects are fantastic. They're all able to bring their own character, and the interactions between them makes us all the more attached to these chucklefucks.
Comprehend why Rannick permits Swagger to remain.
I know. They'll just let anyone aboard the Morning Star these days.
Indeed, that means I
I'm sure I wouldn't do that.
I fade, but I shall not give the heretics any satisfaction. The end will Hush! My spirit endures. Nothing else matters.
In a big mud, but I'm glad you're on Earth, guys. Have it your way, but frothing in the mouth ain't exactly a healthy sign. It's just healing the body, nothing more.
Too much thinking makes me born an infant dingo.
Maybe think a bit less. We don't want your head to pop.
Though, I do have a complaint. When you create your character, you're first given the options of what planet they reside from, their upbringings, and how they got here. And as far as I can tell, none of the characters mention these things, with the only exception being the veteran Cutthroat, or they talk about Cadia, but even then, it's only the planet itself, and nothing too specific like their time in Cadia. And this is such a shame, because if you have two characters with the same personality, it does highlight how similar they are. Don't get me wrong, it's still good dialogue. I just wish these options influenced my character, so I can make them feel more personal. Though, to bring it back to the gushing, here's some tunes. The music is a fantastic blend of electronic synth and medieval gothic, which is right at home with 40k. But it doesn't just favor the setting, it's also very layered, and does a great job at building things up and up until it reaches its peak. And it's pairing with Immortal Imperium. At first, it starts with these repeating synth notes, before we get these drums that are then layered with a higher pitched synth. And then a pipe organ shows up with some choir chants. That'll complete the melody, creating this. But don't worry, Chaos also has its own music, with things like harsh strings, wispy chants, and more distorted synth that help distinguish it from the Imperium. And aside from that, the music is able to reinforce the objectives the game wants to complete, like the sequence, where you hear this build-up as I set up these data interrogators, before you have the choir begin their chant as the fighting starts. Before it's cut, and you need to complete a minigame to continue the progress. When you finish that minigame, the choir makes their return as you continue the fighting, until it's over. Now how about that gameplay? Darktide's combat is a mix of melee and ranged. Your melee is split between 4 different attacks. Vanguard is your horde clear that's able to cut through most enemies, but it's great base damage against heavy armor. Relentless, however, trades damage for stagger, which basically stuns an enemy, and it's great for turning the bad men don't fight back, but has the same cons as Vanguard. Strike Down is the opposite of the two, where it's great single target damage, and as well against heavy armor, but lacks the crowd control the previous attacks have. And Assassin plays a similar role to Strike Down, but differs its high headshot damage, faster attacks, and lack of armor penetration. We'll get to you. Your melee is also subdivided by light and heavy attacks, with their obvious differences. You also have special actions, which allows your weapons to do a unique thing. This can range from flashlights, a different attack, a power-up, or the Moonlight Greatsword. Something cool about the melee system is they are able to interweave these attacks into combos based on weapon animations and patterns, and this can be demonstrated with the Mark 10 Heroic Blade. If you just spam your light attacks, it'll deal with any basic core without much issue. But if you're dealing with a pack of elites, then powering up your sword and doing the first 2 light attacks before repeating your heavy attacks can stagger and kill that horde. If you're fighting more armored enemies or bosses, however, then performing the first 2 heavy attacks followed by a light attack will whittle them down. By having these combos, it creates meaningful depth and becomes one of my favorite first-person melee systems. But it's not just chainswords and chain axes, because sometimes the best way to deal with any would-be heretic is a gun. The gunplay is very satisfying, and adds more variety to the game, thanks to its diverse selection. Though, you do have a limited amount of ammo, and sometimes you need to pull out the sword, either because the gun you have isn't great against certain enemies, or because of this. But it's not just offense, there's also defense. Now, this blue line here is your toughness, and at first glance, you might think it's a second health bar, but that's only half true. If you're shot at, it does act like a second health bar, however, in melee, it only does that for its first attack. After that, it only reduces the damage you take. To get your toughness back, you have to either kill enemies in melee, or be with your team to form a coherency that regenerates their toughness. You can also block, push, slide, and dodge. Blocking mitigates melee attacks that cost stamina, and should you lose that stamina, your block is broken. Pushing allows you to interrupt enemies, and if you hold as you push, you do a follow-up attack that adds another wrinkle to the melee system, but, like blocking, it also uses stamina. Sliding allows you to avoid being riddled with bullets. However, you need to sprint before that, which means using stamina. And finally, you have dodges. Dodges are pretty obvious, but they do have a few quirks. Your weapons can influence your dodges, including its limit. Though, this doesn't dictate if you can still dodge or not, but rather the effectiveness of it, which means that if you go past that limit, it starts to become worse and worse until it refreshes. So, you don't want to carelessly dodge, lest you want to get hit. Luckily, you have this dodge counter, so you don't have to worry about that. Instead, you should worry about that overhead. Luckily, you can be revived by an ally if you're knocked down, but after your revival, you'll have this purple bar over a portion of your health. And that bar is known as corruption. Corruption doesn't just limit your max health, however, it also limits the amount of times you can be revived. So, if you have high enough corruption, you'll actually die, and you'll have to wait for a teammate to pick you up at a checkpoint. The only way to remove corruption is by paying a visit to this fine gentleman for his services.
Pieces of my mind are floating away. Please help. Please.
You may sometimes need to give him a battery so you can continue service! Oh, and don't think being down is the only way to receive corruption, because certain enemies can inflict this stuff. Speaking of, let's talk about all the friendly faces you'll meet. The enemies have a great variety to them. You got your Sablers, your area denial enemies, special ranged enemies, your slow but heavy hitting enemies, the ketamine enjoyers, a shield enemy, and the Boomer from Left 4 Dead. Aside from those guys, there's also a few bosses, from a guy with more drip to there's also the demon host that acts like Left 4 Dead's witch. So you don't keep your distance unless you think spending a good time is being mauled to near death and sent to a pole to who knows where, probably Birmingham knowing the company. And if you avoid that fate and actually kill her, you'll receive a lot of corruption in the process, so unless you're prepared, it's best to let her be. But enough about these pesky heretics. Wait, there's a new enemy? So, it's time to talk about the Plasma Gunner, the newest addition to Darktide. And I have to say, they may be a bit, overtuned. To help elaborate my point, I'll be comparing them to the other range enemies, namely the Sniper. Unlike other special enemies, the Sniper has no audio announcement. However, that's not a problem, because they have this laser, so you know that they're there. But not only that, it also allows you to know if being targeted or not, with the tracking being easily broken by just dodging. However, you don't break the tracking, you'll hear this. Let you know that you should dodge or slide out of the way. And if you don't move out of the way, then you can say goodbye to your toughness and a portion of your health. To compensate that, they have the durability of wet tissue. Now, onto the Plasma Gunner. Like the Sniper, they have no voice lines. Unlike the Sniper, they have no visual indicator of who they're aiming at. The only cues are the sounds they make when they charge and fire a shot, as well as a flash before they fire. The only thing that's like the laser is the tracer after they fire, which is rather faint, especially when you have high corruption, which, side note, I really wish there was an option to lower it, because the game already uses a lot of grays and is generally dark, so having this screen effect that desaturates the color rather intensely would only hurt that clarity. But to bring it back, if you do get shot at, your toughness will be reduced. That's the least of your worries, because toughness will be almost gone, and before you can process that, your health will dramatically drop. Now, that's rather intense, but you may think, oh, they must have a low fire rate, or be kind of weak. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. The fire rate's more like the Shotgunner. They're far tankier than other ranged enemies, as well as having the same head armor as these guys. They're able to fire and move, very much unlike the Sniper, and they come in a group of a similar size to the Shotgunner, which means that whatever gaps they may have had when firing is further reduced. This creates such a contrast to the other ranged enemies. I've already mentioned the Sniper, but the Gunner and Reaper have to go to their toughness in order to actually damage you, with the compensation of a higher firing rate and being more tankier than the Sniper, though you can't suppress them, which forces them to go to cover and not fire. The Shotgunner is immune to suppression, but if you're close enough to them, they'll go to melee and engage you there, which gives you another way to avoid their fire. The Plasma Gunner feels like a mix of the best parts of those enemies without the obvious weaknesses they have. Now, Fat Shark is aware of this, and has done a hotfix nerfing them, with a future patch being worked at, which hopefully reels them in, and maybe can keep their carapace heads but have their guns explode if shot at, like the Flamer's fuel takes. I mean, Plasma is notoriously known for being unstable, and it's likely we haven't seen it in Darktide. Hell, you can have them say a line before they start firing at a higher rate, which could result in a bigger explosion. Though there may be something I'm not seeing that could make that implementation difficult. Honestly, just including unique voice lines would not only give me more great voice acting, but also help me know when to start firing. Much like the Gunner.
Got a present for you!
Also, please add them to the training ground. I don't know why they're not there. And hopefully they do get properly balanced, because as you progress, you'll find more ways to replenish and maintain that toughness. So let's talk about the rejects. The base game has 4 classes: Veteran, Zealot, Psyker, and Ogryn. Veteran is your gun guy. They have a frag grenade, an aura that gives your team ammo after killing a special enemy, and an ability to shoot better. The Zealot is the opposite of Veteran, foregoing expert marksmanship for stabbing people while starting their favorite servants, like the God Emperor intended. They have a stun grenade, an aura that reduces the amount of toughness your team loses when hit, and an ability that has you run towards an enemy so they can be in stabbing range. Ogryn is your big and lovable guy that ensures those bad men don't hurt his little friends. Their dodges are able to knock over any basic enemy thanks to their large size. They have a box full of grenades that they effectively use against one guy, an aura that makes their team's melee do more damage, and an ability that has an Ogun charge straight line knocking any enemies down and clearing the way for your team. And Psyker is your wizard. It has a grenade option be a single target brain burst that has infinite use, but builds up peril. And if you have too high a peril for too long, then you might find those voices in your head to be a lot louder, so you better quell that peril, or this might happen. They also have an aura that reduces the cooldown of your team's ability, including yours, with an ability that helps quell a portion of their peril and knocking over enemies. Though, your characters aren't limited to only these things, as all classes have a talent tree. There are 5 types of changes that you can make to your character, from your grenade, or blitz as it's called, coherency aura, ability, talents, which are additional buff to your character, and keystones, which act like more complex talents. This tree allows you to personalize your reject and create diverse builds, like a Zeld that has you use your ability, keystone, and passives to increase the chances to crit, along with benefits from critting, like more toughness or reducing your ability's cooldown. A build for Oakland can have the big guy aggro a bunch of enemies, and from there you can have those enemies take bonus damage, with some notes that make you more tanky. And if you want to ensure a certain enemy's demise, then look no further than your big friendly rock. Or you can have a Psyker that has them in the powered up state, but with constant build-up of peril over time, though you can use that build-up to your advantage by getting buffs when having high peril while still controlling it thanks to a few nodes that encourages you to use your ability before trying to maintain that peril to maximize the benefits. But it's not just your character that gets better, your weapons also get better. All weapons have a mastery progression level that increases by either using said weapon during a mission or by sacrificing other weapons, with weapons of the same type giving more value. As you progress the weapon's mastery, you gain rewards like access to different marks of a weapon, new blessings for these weapons, better blessings and perks, and being able to increase the max level of your weapon. You'll need to visit the lovely Hadron to apply these things, like perks that'll do better damage against certain types of enemies, or implement blessings like being able to hit more enemies or having your attacks go through armor after hitting the head, which you can stack. Yeah, this definitely needs a nerf. Though, this does make me wish they explained what some of the terms mean, because while terms like cleave can be explained by looking at their weapon stats, others like strength don't have that grace, and require looking it up outside the game. Luckily there's a great resource for that, but the point still stands. I feel like either having a help section somewhere in the settings, or explain the term around here can help solve that issue, but moving on from that, there's also the weapons shop, where you can either buy a rotating list of available weapons, with some having a perk and or blessing, or if you want a specific weapon, then you can just buy that, but it won't have anything special on it. Oh, and you also have curios, which are basically stat buffs. You can change them the same way as you do weapons. You also have 3 other vendors that can change your appearance, with one of them allowing you to change your personality for some coins. And to round it up, you have Hestia, who gives you a bunch of milestones to complete in exchange for some free cosmetics. And next to her is Milk, who like Hestia, asks you to do some things each week, and if you complete these things, you get these silver coins that you can spend on weapons with higher blessings and perks, compared to the shop's offerings. Or, if you're a real gambler, then you can spend on a random weapon that may or may not be worthwhile. Though, I do have a small complaint. If you switch characters, any progress you make on the first doesn't transfer for the other. So if you want to complete all of Milk's challenges to get the bonus, you need to stick with that one character until it's done. This is rather weird, because none of the challenges are character specific, and nothing like this exists for anything else. So it makes it feel tedious and arbitrary for no apparent reason. I think allowing it to progress with different characters won't hurt the grind, but instead encourage people who do play multiple classes to actually try and complete all of the challenges. Speaking of challenges, as you get better, the difficulty will as well, thanks to things like mission modifiers. These will change the mission with various effects, like a total blackout, a specific enemy showing up more, or having portions of the area be filled with pox gas if you want to play the floor as chemical warfare. Orc missions also add to that challenge with even more modifiers, along with a harder difficulty compared to normal missions. And this not only further scratches that challenge itch, it's also where I think the game's combat loop shines, thanks to the larger horror you'll face. And if you need more torture, then Havoc Mode is for you. Havoc Mode is Darktide's endgame content, where you complete missions from the compassionate Commissar Duke Kane.
Harden your heart.
To get progressively harder with different modifiers like Demon Host summonings, enemies getting stronger after they suffer enough damage, and certain enemies healing their allies, as well as reducing any pick-me-ups while multiplying the horde. It starts with you either finding a group or creating a group, which I really wish they explained the party finding better, because it took me an embarrassing amount of time to figure out how to create a group, which may be a me problem, but considering the lack of tutorialization, I think I have a point. Every week you'll earn rewards based on your rank. Completing a mission will increase that rank, with even harder missions further skyrocketing it. But if you lose 3 times, you'll be demoted to a lower rank. Though, if you want to help someone who's a lower rank than you, you're free to do that, without the worry of losing your rank. It's a mode that, while I'm not super great at, I really enjoy because it requires you to think about how you build your character, and test your skills by laying that fire under you. Sometimes literally. And while you may have some builds that do better than others, you can still make the less meta builds viable with some work on your end. Not to mention with the talent rework to the Veteran, Zeld, and Psyker that further helps those builds with things like opening up the tree, which creates more variety, making the required nodes easy to access, while bringing down some overpowered nodes, and introducing and changing some nodes to be more useful. The changes to Marksman's focus and Executioner's stance make a gun veteran build feel so much better to play. Obviously, it's not entirely perfect. I still think things like Infiltrate need more love, and certain weapons need some retuning. Also, please nerf Uncanny Strike, it's way too good, which if you want my 2 cents on it, I think it shouldn't stack. But this is meant to be a halfway point, as Fatshark is still working on it, and based on what we have now, I think this is a step in the right direction, especially since Psyker's Disrupt Destiny is as reliable as Arbites' Execution Order, which makes me very happy. Speaking of, unlike all the other rejects who are conscripted to liberate Atoma, the Arbites were sent because the planet's behind its taxes, and even the Grim Darkness 40k, you don't fuck with the taxmen. The Arbites are a bit unique compared to the other classes, with the fact that you have a dog. Now, I was concerned how they are implemented because the only other 40k dog Walkerson that I know of was Necromunda, Hired Gun, and that was kind of jank from what I remembered. But I can confidently say they're great here. Your dog works like the pox sound, where it's able and maul an enemy to death. And if you want a specific enemy to be dealt with, you just double tap the tag button and watch Fighter go to work. It came for you from grabs by pox sounds, mutants, and chaos spawn. Though you don't just get man's best friend, you also get a second, third, and fourth best friends in the form of shotguns, shot pistol, and shock mauls that are exclusive to themselves, along with other weaponry. And when you start playing them, you initially have access to an impact grenade, in order that allows your dog to be part of your team's coherency, and an ability that deploys a Nuncio Aquila that replenishes toughness and makes enemies weaker. But like the other classes, the Arbites talent tree allows you to mold them into what you want. Like having an aura that deals more damage against staggered enemies, an ability that powers them up and makes them more tanky. You can even modify who your dog targets, or old yell them mud in exchange for buffs like constantly replenishing your grenades. Though, not only can you no longer pet the dog, you lose access to any nodes related to the dog, including the dog bomb, that shocks and damages nearby enemies. These can create interesting builds, like a Riot Police build where you stagger and control enemies with some benefits from staggering them, along with a few nodes that help make you more tanky, and by proxy, further control the crowd. Or a build that has you and your dog spend some quality bonding time by hunting down some heretics, with bonuses granted to you by killing targets that are pounced by your dog, and by getting the more special heretics, where it's by your hand, or your dog's metallic teeth. They also, of course, have their own personalities, with equally fantastic voice acting.
We're an effective team. It's a pity that some of you are almost certainly Lex breakers.
I have committed no crime save empathy. Though that is surely enough to see me cold.
The witch makes a dangerous harvest. Fortunate that I am an expert. The witch is a blight. Treat it accordingly.
All of this will make them a welcome addition to the game that adds new exotic ways to dismember a heretic. But you might be unsatisfied. After all, you can only activate the dog bomb twice before waiting for the cooldown. And that's not enough bombs. Don't worry, there's a mode where you can have all the dog bombs you want, within 10 seconds. And that mode is the Mortis Trials. The Mortis Trials is a roguelike mode where you and your team have to survive 12 ways that get progressively harder. It starts with you selecting an archetype. Classes are about tanking damage. Death Dealer gives buffs to your melee when using your ranged weapon, and vice versa. Voltaic and Pyrokinetic apply stacks of shock and fire respectively, along with buffs against enemies affected by them, with Voltaic being more defensive, while Pyrokinetic is more offensive. And Fulminator is a combination of Pyrokinetic and Voltaic. You also get 2 new archetypes in the form of Goliath and Emperor's Favored. Emperor's Favored is about getting crits and buffs for critting, like blowing up enemies after you crit them. Goliath gives you certain movement-related immunities and buffs your ability to stagger enemies. After each wave, you get a minor buff based on your archetype. They also get major buffs every 3rd wave. These can be universal, like increasing your abilities used by 2, or more specific, like having infinite ammo when using Executioner stance. Though, just as you get better, the waves will get harder, and that'll be by throwing random bullshit at you. For example, in a regular game, you may encounter a few pox bursters every now and then, but in the Mortis Trials, you'll find a whole gaggle of them running towards you. Or, it could be a wave that has a Plague Ogun, Chaos Spawn, and a Beast of Miracle. That's pretty bad, right? Okay, so what if we double that? No, triple that. It's a very chaotic but fun mode that allows you to do a bunch of stupid stuff that's counterbalanced by having the enemy also be absurd. You also get dialogue from the personnel of the Morningstar, and this dialogue is used to tell us how they got here, hint at future events, or for Moore's case, to highlight how much of a fucking gigachad he is.
The blood must flow! Yeah, about that.
And these hints may be leading to something more, with the revamped campaign. If you aren't familiar with the previous campaign, it asks you to do a bunch of missions until you reach a certain level, where you then see a cutscene that basically goes, Operator, you've done some things for us, but you still need to prove yourself. Rinse and repeat until you level 30. Along with that, there's also a plot where there is a traitor aboard the Morningstar, and that is figured out off-screen, with no relation to the missions you do, which makes the missions feel unimportant, even though that's not the case when some of them involve halting a chaos ritual, stopping a train full of bombs, or banishing an actual demon. But now we have a new campaign, and this one has us do those same missions, but after completion, a cutscene plays where one of the characters talks about the mission, the effect we had on it, and some other stuff. It also unlocks a mission for future play. They also changed how you access harder difficulties. Instead of getting at a certain level, you start at the lowest difficulty, with access to the harder ones being after you complete a mission, at that previous difficulty. So it doesn't hurt more experienced players' experience, while allowing newcomers to adjust to the challenge. And the trailer subplot is not totally unrelated. It has some connections. Okay, joking aside, it's a much better campaign experience that actually feels like a campaign, and not a bunch of side quests while the main plot happens in the background. Though, I'm a bit confused why they didn't include Rolling Steel, the train mission, as that introduces us to Comstar Duquesne, who, by proxy, introduces us to Havoc Mode, but maybe that's something for the future. Now, despite some of the issues I have with the game, at least as I'm making this video, I wholeheartedly recommend Darktide. Its combat loop and systems that support it are satisfying, addictive, and so fucking sick. You can find the base game for $40, which I'll link in the pinned comment. Sorry about the wait, this is my first time making a video that isn't under 8 minutes, and right when I was about to record the audio, the reworks were implemented, and I had to reduce some segments. So, sorry about that. If you enjoyed the video, you can use the YouTube pleasantries, including hyping the video. But until then, Merry Christmas, and I'll see you when GTA 6 releases.